Welcome to Cinema 5D on the Go. Moving conversations about moving images with filmmakers and industry leaders. Brought to you by Hedge for Mac, Rode Microphones, G Technology, and Zachtle, in association with Ford. This is your host, Nino Leitner.
Welcome to this episode of Cinema 5D on the Go. This time again from Cologne, but with a new round of guests. So we have Clive Booth here next to me, director from the UK. Is that correct?
Yeah, photographer, filmmaker.
Photographer,
whatever.
filmmaker. Very good.
Yeah, I'll answer to anything really. Yeah.
And then we have Christian Anderl at the back there, fellow Austrian.
Yes, Austrian dudes.
And a Canon Ambassador. And next to him, Ingo Leitner, also Austrian, but living in Germany, right?
I actually live in Munich, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's okay. We accept that.
It's close to Austria.
And you're a wedding filmmaker, right?
Actually, yeah, wedding photographer, teacher, entrepreneur, like that's my kind of business, yeah.
So all of you are basically photographers turned filmmakers, is that correct?
Both really.
Yeah.
Both simultaneous.
Both,
you know, sometimes make films, sometimes shoot pictures. You know.
Yeah.
So
it's all about pictures.
Yeah.
Moving or still.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So Clive, I heard you were probably the only or one of the few chosen ones that were lucky enough to shoot with the C700 already.
Yeah, we were very fortunate. Since May I've been working on, April I've been working on a new project with Hackett, the fashion brand in the UK, and they were creating a new capsule collection for Aston Martin. So a collaboration between two really wonderful British brands, and it's the first time in maybe 10 years that Aston Martin have produced a new car. So if you'd seen Spectre, you'd seen the DB10, and the DB11 is sort of the road-going version of the DB10. And our film was to include the new DB10 and then combine the collaboration, the clothing. So we had a great model, Tommy Dunn, flying from New York, and then we made this film. I wrote the treatment. It was a co-direction with a friend of mine who I've worked with for many years, Bill Waters, and I wrote the treatment for the film back in April, I think. And we were very, very fortunate that the film actually matched the treatment, which very rarely happens. It's been a really exciting project, and it just coincided that our shoot dates matched with Canon's, just prior to Canon's launch for the new C700. And I particularly like to shoot in 4K. Our delivery is HD, but it's kind of like shooting with high resolution stills cameras in that you've got all this 4K real estate, and so you can crop into that and move around that. And also shooting 4K RAW, and I've also worked with Codex for many years, and they create the recorders and work very closely with Canon. So Codex co-collaborated with this as well as Canon, and it was it was great. The camera was flown in from Japan for us. It wasn't even painted when we got it. It was just magnesium, and it was.
Well, we're ready selling that, right?
Well, yeah.
You can sell it for more money.
Well, that's a good thing, an interesting thing, because you look at, if you go on the Canon stand and you look at, you see some of the camera bodies. They've got this brushed magnesium look prior to being painted, and a lot of people I think would really like that.
I would love it.
Yeah. So maybe they should think about that. But we shoot in 4K RAW, and the camera's got this huge dynamic range, and so for us, I like to shoot in natural light. So the treatment was shot in the Hackett store itself. It's kind of a misdirection in that Tommy, our model, the opening scene is Tommy in what looks like a very beautiful Georgian apartment, and then a valet appears and helps him dress in all this cool clothes, and then he has these sort of flashbacks to driving an Aston Martin. He sees the Aston Martin outside, and then he has these flashbacks. So we connect the two brands together with these sort of little vignettes, which we also use as teasers. So he presses this press stud on his jacket, which then you hear the sound of the DB11 engine come to life. He taps his foot on the chair, in the apartment, and you hear the car revving. And so this idea grew, and fortunately for us, we had this new cameras, this exotic technologies, but we needed that high dynamic range with the camera and the latitude, because we were shooting into the window. So you've got the window light, which is quite bright, and then you've got the shadow. And the camera coped with it incredibly well. And we graded it at Codex on their 4K grading suite, which is a cinema in Soho with a base light system, with a feature films colorist. And that's really a wonderful process. And the results are extraordinary. So, I'm very fortunate, and great project.
Isn't it daring to, especially from a director's point of view, to use a completely unknown camera on such a high-profile job? I mean, I've done it before because I'm mad.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I did it with the C500 actually.
Yeah.
I did a short film on that when nobody knew the camera. When there were only the first Gemini.
I did too with the
recorders.
C500. Yeah, we did a fashion film with
and
that.
it worked out fine, but
Yeah.
it's always like, you end up on the set, you're like, oh my god, I have a crew and cast there, and it's like, we have a camera that nobody knows, and it literally just arrived the day before.
Well, I was very fortunate to work with Chris Clark, who's a really, really experienced DOP, and I met him when Canon were actually making a film about me, about a personal project I've been shooting in Scotland. And I worked with another director, a very talented director called Mark Rodway, who shoots a lot of Jaguar commercials actually. And I met Chris, and we immediately got on, because it's really important that you get on with people, and I like to have a good time, hopefully when you're working. So Chris, Chris already had that connection with Canon. He knows the Canon workflow, and the great thing about the Canon workflow is that we use these ME200s. So we rigged Aston Martins basically with a guy called Kenny Atherfold, who is a legendary grip in the UK. He's basically I sat with him in his van at the beginning of the day, and I said, Kenny, what was the first job you worked on? He said, oh, that would be 2001. And I said, right, okay.
The movie, not the year.
Yeah, the movie. Yeah, but he if you look on him, look at his CV, it's just unbelievable. And he worked on most of the Bond films since Roger Moore to Skyfall, and Chris, my DOP, said, Clive, if you can really get Kenny. And Kenny said, yeah, and he'd just come from shooting Dunkirk, I think it is, with Christopher Nolan. And he just came on our set for a day, and he rigged the Aston Martin so beautifully. We couldn't, unfortunately, rig the C700. We used C300 Mark IIs. But we had
a bit of a long camera for that.
Yeah,
right?
quite a long camera. But we used the C700 for these really key shots. So we have a key shot where we have the two brands next to each other. So on Regent Street, we have the DB11 sat in front of Hackett store, which we shot, I think, at 5 a.m. I think the call time for that day was 4 a.m. And so the camera's
probably the
there.
only time of the day where there is not much traffic there.
Exactly, on Regent Street, which is really, really, really busy. But we got acquainted with the camera really quickly, because it's the Canon workflow. So it's like with stills cameras with Canon, you pick them up, and once you understand that sort of workflow, you can work with it very, very quickly. And Chris, the DOP, particularly with these technically difficult shots, was very impressed, which was a relief to me. If Chris hadn't been happy, we would have probably had to think carefully about it, but he said, yeah, it's cool. And he went down and was able to look at the camera a few days before. So it all worked out really, really well.